Are you curious about Gestalt language processing? You are not alone. Join me, Corinne Smoose, and Speech Therapy PD for our podcast, The Gestalt Get Together. Our episodes try to balance the enthusiasm and excitement about GLP and its associated intervention ideas, as well as a healthy dose of skepticism about how to understand and integrate this paradigm shift into your career and the field at large. We hope that you can get together with us to learn more about Gestalts.
Welcome to SLP Learning Series, a podcast series presented by SpeechTherapyPD.com. The SLP Learning Series explores various topics of speech-language pathology. Each season dives deeper into a topic with a different host and guests who are leaders in the field. Some topics include stuttering, AAC, sports concussion, teletherapy, ethics, and more. Each episode has an accompanying audio course on SpeechTherapyPD.com and is available for 0.1 ASHA CEUs. Now, come along with us as we look closer into the many topics of speech-language pathology.
Welcome to the podcast mini-series, Advocacy for the Whole SLP, presented by SpeechTherapyPD.com. Thanks for joining us for episode number 2, exploring state advocacy trends in speech-language pathology in 2024. This episode is offered for 0.1 ASHA CEUs. We are your hosts. I'm Jess Honemeter and
I'm Dr. Stephanie Reed-Fody,
co-owners of Speech Story Studios. So I guess we'll start with some disclosures and some introductions. Steph, I'll introduce you first. Does that sound okay?
Sounds good to me.
Sweet. So Dr. Stephanie Reed-Fody is a New Jersey state licensed ASHA certified speech language pathologist with a decade of experience. She earned her Bachelor of Arts and Master of Arts and doctorate in speech language pathology from Kean University. Stephanie has extensive experience with children across various settings, specializing in stuttering, language disorders, auditory processing disorders, pragmatic language disorders, and alternative augmentative communication. It sounds like you work in a school.
How did you know? What gave it away?
She provides training for parents and educational staff and has worked with children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, apraxia of speech, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and other conditions.
Right. It's so nice when someone else talks about you. It's so much fun.
I know.
All right. And now I'm going to talk about my other lovely co-host, Miss Jessica Honemeter. She also holds her master's and undergraduate degree from Kean University. And she has a very diverse background in early intervention, school-based services, and subacute rehab. She currently focuses on evidence-based therapy through in-person and teletherapy methods. So if you ever want information on teletherapy, she is your go-to person. She is licensed in multiple states, including Pennsylvania, California, Florida, Alaska, Hawaii, and Wyoming. Jessica emphasizes cultural sensitivity in her practice and has presented on advocacy, teletherapy strategies, auditory processing disorders, and hearing screenings in college students. Outside of work, she loves to explore her current home base of Hawaii with her husband as travel content creators. So just hashtag go over to YouTube when you guys have a chance and check out Wanderlust Studios, right? I got the title right?
Wanderlust Travel.
Wanderlust
Studios. Oh, thanks.
So say if you want to check it out. And quickly we'll get into our financial and non-financial, and then we'll like to get in. We have an extra person here. We want to definitely dive in and share our extra co-host today. So we'll quickly go through our financial and non-financial. So quickly, my financial disclosure is I'm a co-owner of Speech Story Studios. I did receive a speaker fee from Speech Therapy PD. And then for my non-financial, I am an ASHA member, and I'm also a New Jersey Speech Language Hearing Association member. I'll pass it to you, Jess.
Perfect. I am the owner of Pangea Speech Therapy, LLC. I'm also the co-owner of Speech Story Studios, and I received a speaker fee from speechtherapypd.com. Non-financial disclosure, I'm an ASHA member and Hawaii Speech Language Hearing Association member. And
we're very excited. We have our first extra guest speaker today, and I'm very excited to introduce the lovely Dr. Cori Regan. So quick little fun story is I know Cori from when we both did our doctorates, and when Jess and I were talking about doing this podcast and we were talking about this episode, the first prop in my head is Cori. And I just remember she was such a great advocate and just had such a great way of telling stories that really enticed me, and she's just such a great way of getting her point across, but still saying it like in such a way that I'm intrigued to understand. I want to know more. So I'm going to let you, Cori, if you'd like to just introduce yourself really quickly. I figured the best way to introduce yourself and tell us all about yourself.
All right, excellent. Well, it's nice to be around fellow Kane University graduates as well. Very nice. In New York, sometimes we don't get too many Kane University graduates. I am a current principal of a New York City public school, a District 75 school. So if I have any New Yorkers are listening, it's 5 boroughs, District 75, and we service students with special needs. So who better to be at the helm of a District 75 school than a speech language pathologist? Because every student in my school has a speech and language deficit. So we work really hard to make sure that we meet that need so that they can be successful in school. But I also have, my background is working with children with autism as a speech language pathologist, and I am prompt certified. And, so that was my area of expertise. I did a lot of early intervention before I came back to the DOE. And I prompt certified, also a BCBA. So I'm a board certified behavior analyst. So I have a lot of experience working with children with autism. At a certain point, I decided to come back to the New York City public school system and work with children across all grades and advocate for students with special needs so that they can have equal access to everything in the school system. So definitely an advocate for speech therapy in schools. I think that sometimes our speech therapists are underutilized. So hopefully we'll talk about that a little bit. But that has been my background, has been working with little ones and prompt therapy, the principles of motor learning theory. And now I just enjoy helping students. My school is pre-K through 22 years old. So I get to see little ones grow up before my eyes and advocate and help them to develop those communication skills.
That's
awesome.
amazing.
I love it.
And
I love that spectrum. Yeah.
And just to for everyone who's listening later, Cori just finished a 5th grade dance. So she's still at school. Talk about,
dedication.
And you are 6 hours behind my time. So it's 2:00 Hawaii time for me. So for you, it's 8:00 your time.
Yes. Yes.
So
I did have to make sure that the custodian was still going to be here so that he did not lock me in the building, even though some nights I can definitely stay here through the evening for sure.
I love that. And then the other thing too, is you have a shirt that says literacy is a human right. And I just, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. Obsessed. So thank you. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. This is the instructional focus of my school is ensuring that every student has access to literacy. And there's lots of great current research out right now just about, you don't have to be verbal and speaking to be able to learn how to read. You can be a non-speaking individual and still be able to read and be literate. And it's a game changer. So we work really hard on ensuring that our students have that access. And of course, who plays such a big role in that in a school? Speech language pathologist.
Amazing.
I think Stephanie might have to come work for me. I don't know what you're still doing in New Jersey.
I know. I don't know.
Say that
we
all
have
the
high
time.
case lists. I know. I don't know. That'll be a whole nother conversation we could talk about another day. So Cori, first question I want to ask you is, so I was doing some little research, just dabbling, of course, now that we are such experts in research. And I read an interesting fact that according to ASHA, from 20 2020 to 2023, New York was expected to see a 40% increase in the demand for SLP. Do you see that trend happening, that increase of that much need for support with us going on right now? Do you see that?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, even in my school alone,
Yeah.
I think we hired, this year alone, we hired, I think, at least 6 more speech language pathologists at my school. And it's a shortage, I think citywide.
Okay.
So we're always looking for highly qualified speech pathologists to join in and work with us. And that's just in the school systems. Of course, we are birthed through, we go all the way through adults. So I'm sure that prevails everywhere.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I know I definitely saw it in even my school right now. We have 4 SLPs retired this year, and we're still looking for 2 more. So if there's any New Jersey people, let me know if you want to come work in New Jersey. It's high caseloads, but it's fun. We like it.
And it's not, listen, you
It's
want to
crazy.
attract,
Yeah.
you want to attract the best people to this field, because speech language pathologists, it just has so much to offer. Just speaking from the lens of a speech language pathologist in the school system, they have so much to offer to support our students. And certainly in a school like mine, where we are, it is like very comprehensive. We talk a lot about interprofessional practices and the role of each individual on our team and how they support a student to be successful. And every student requires those supports so that they can be successful. If you have a child that is non-speaking and you are working on phonological awareness or comprehension skills, we need that speech language pathologist to come in with their lens to provide that student with resources so that they can be successful. So we want to attract the very best of the best into the school systems. And to do that, I think definitely we do have to look at the mandates and how they're set up to support speech pathologists and to support new people coming into the field, because it can be overwhelming.
Speaking of mandates.
Yeah.
Speaking of mandates, I mean, so for today, we're going to focus on like the state level part and how we can advocate for the state level. So like, if we're thinking, this is pretty awesome. I don't know if this has been done before. So I'm currently sitting in Hawaii. Steph is currently sitting in New Jersey. You're currently sitting in New York. Like, we are 3 people literally across the world. And just thinking about like state level mandates. I know that New York, what they require, especially for the DOE too, is totally different than what is required in Hawaii state, in Pennsylvania, in California, in New Jersey, in all of these other places. It's totally different. Can you talk a little bit about some of the requirements, like state level for SLPs in New York? Because I know I was confused when I was looking at things.
Sure. And just to preface, I'm a principal right now, but before I came into this role, I was the director of speech services for New York City school system. So I was responsible for the speech therapists in districts 1 through 32.
Amazing.
Because speech therapy is, even when people ask me now what I do, well, I'm a principal, but I'm a speech language pathologist first and foremost.
Yes.
My heart is just here in this school. So that's why I made that change. But you need your master's degree to come and work in the New York City school system, New York City public schools. You do have to have your master's degree, or the preference is to have your master's degree. And that's what they're seeking for the most highly qualified individuals. Once you do have your C's, you are entitled to get a stipend, an extra stipend into your salary, because they will be billing Medicaid for your services to help fund those positions. So they do even get a stipend after they have their C's. So that's like a nice little extra monetary benefit. But you are responsible then for getting all of your hours every year and doing all of that at the state level. And then of course we do that for Asher as well.
Sure.
Nice. Sure. Awesome. Now, question of that little stipend there. I know, like in at least New Jersey, we had to fight to get that stipend. Like, was it automatically, has that been in place for a while since like the C's came around? Or did you have to like advocate for that and get it? Because I know like for us, like that's where we're right now, like we're trying to say, we have our C's, can we get extra support for it? Like, or can we get a little stipend for it since you're billing? So I'm curious to see, like, you as the director versus I'm sure when SLPs kind of still come back and forth with you, like, like on the director side, like, well, we have all these budget information, like,
Right.
can't quite do that, but like, how do you kind of keep a balance of that? Like, I'll be curious.
I think it's relatively newer in the New York City public schools. I don't know because the years go by so fast, but it's more recent than not. Once after an individual finishes their CF year, then they do an application process. And once they do that, it's pretty automatic. The DOE will, I keep saying DOE, they're actually called the New York City Public Schools now. I have to change that. So the New York City Public Schools then will, like go in and update the system, and they actually like change how they are coded for hire and put them under a different line where then they will get that stipend every year to work in the New York City public schools. So they're not going to want to come to New Jersey or Hawaii because we're getting the extra cash here in New York. So I'm going to share my email, I think, at the end of this.
Yes, we'll give you a chance to kind of, tell us where to find you. So that'll be good.
Please. Always looking for passionate people. And by the way, of course, we know that no one knows everything, like you mentioned, Stephanie, about doing AAC. I mean, that is a skill that when you graduate and you start working, if that's something you're interested in, then that's something you take on and start learning more and more about, because there's it's such a diverse field with so many different areas that you can really specialize in. So, we just want people that are passionate and want to come in and work, but we do know that sometimes you get started and it's really overwhelming. The mandates are high, caseloads, and it's a mandate driven system. So you're working and where's the time to collaborate for that SLP? Where is the time for them to meet with teachers? And really, we talk about interprofessional practices, but we're not really giving you the time to engage in those practices as a professional. So those things definitely we would love to see improvement with.
Yeah. So that ties in perfect to my next question for you. So of course, we should always have more time for all those extra things of collaborating. Have you found like any strategies to help do that at as a previous director or as not even a principal? Like, how do you talk to your staff about that, or just collaborate, or address it to allow for collaboration, or try to, given that time?
Right.
I think that's something we all struggle with.
It's something that, certainly in my other position as a director of speech services, that was always a conversation. I was much in favor of piloting a program that went more on that workload model, where there was time built into schedules for providers, for the SLP to meet with the team, to meet with the OTs and PTs and the classroom teachers, because there should be much more integration into the classroom. But it's hard to do that and be prepared if there's no prep time, So New York City is a mandate-driven school system, and oftentimes there will be those 8 periods that speech pathologists will be working with students. So when do they find the time? I mean, unless they strategically place their preps and their administrative professional periods for when the teacher might also be free. We do try to have our SLPs, and even in my other position, we would make these recommendations to the speech supervisors. Try to have the speech pathologists work with all the students in that particular class. In my school, it's easy. Everybody gets speech therapy, so we can have somebody pick up the whole class of students. But in another school, there might be 1 or 2 students in a class. And so that's hard. They have a lot of teachers that they're dealing with. So, besides if there's canceled sessions, we're going to encourage you to get in that classroom and to sit down, observe a lesson, see what the teacher's working on, sharing information in Google Drives. So the SLP should have access to the curriculum, but of course this requires time, and that sometimes leads to stress because we're busy. And certainly the new SLP is also navigating caseloads and managing that. So sometimes it leads to, a quick burnout until you got to kind of work through it and weather the storm there a bit.
Yeah, agreed.
Oh, that's great.
I think too, and Steph and I, we talked about this, we tapped into this, I don't know if it was last week or a couple weeks ago, but we were talking about how that burnout, but also my therapy is completely different than it was 10 years ago because we know so much more. And I think the first maybe 5 or 6 years for me personally, like getting into this career, it was most me like understanding what the heck I was doing when it came to therapy, what to look for, becoming more attuned with like what to look for when I would pick up a case. But now it's like, okay, here's what we have. How do we make it better? And like, who do I go to talk to make it better so that like, things start to run smoothly, right? Moving forward. So the way that we were kind of thinking about this is like national, state, like the business owner or in schools or clinic owner, and then the individual, right? So that's kind of how like we were thinking. So I guess in terms of like state level, how and who would you gonna talk to in order to get something moving? Like, I feel like now I feel more ready and willing to advocate and like go to the sessions, go to the state, hearing association or whatever it is. Who can people go to at their state level? Like, who do you recommend that we go to? And I know that was like a million questions at once, so feel free to ever answer whichever one works.
Yeah, well, I want to say that it's definitely that saying, like, the more I know, the more I realize I don't know and I need to learn. Yeah, I mean, I feel like as you go along on this journey, there's so many things that you learn. And of course, as things evolve and change, like that's why that research is so important, to keep up so that you are aware of evidence-based therapeutic interventions that you're implementing with your students. Yeah, we actually at one of my schools right now, I have a team that actually presented at NISLA last year on integration of speech therapy in the classroom. So the SLP, there is something called the AIMS program in my school, and the speech therapist is living in that classroom with the teacher, and they're working together. And the team wanted to share that information because it is important for people to see that interprofessional practices and therapists working together, the OT, the PT, speech teacher in the classroom does help and does benefit that student across the board because we're all learning from one another. So certainly getting involved at that state level. I mean, that particular team really advocated for that, went up and presented it and made sure that what they were doing was seen by all, because these are important changes also in our mandates and the delivery of our mandates, but also, to show that collaboration is so important and that we do have to make time for it, so I think definitely getting involved at that state level and going to those workshops and perhaps even planning a workshop, because that put them front and center and really kind of headlining what they were doing in the school system. I know the SLPs in schools is only one part. You can work in so many different areas, but certainly there are many, many people that graduate and choose to go into the school systems. But we have to, as speech language pathologists, continue to advocate for changes in our profession as we learn more and as we want to do more to help students. And there are so many students with disabilities and that have individual needs. And we do know that literacy is a right and that there is a significant role of that SLP to support students in the classroom. So even in my own school with phonological awareness, we're bringing in that speech pathologist and saying, hey, you guys are experts in this area. So where do you see yourself fitting in here? Like, where is your, piece to this pie to help our students be successful? So I think it's doing it at the school level. And then it's also making those state connections. And, kudos to my team at my 844 site that they took what they are doing and they made a workshop out of it to show others the best practice of this interprofessional practice within this AIMS program in the New York City public schools. So I think it's constantly putting yourself out there and letting people see what you're doing and that it's successful and showing the data. You have to have the data to show that what you're doing does work.
I love that.
When you initiated, did you help was it you helped support them get that, or did they came to you to propose this idea
Oh
and like
no, they came
this?
to me and they were like, "Can we
Okay.
get these days off because we're going
Yeah.
up to Albany to present
Yeah.
on the Ames class and all the work we do together." And I was like, "Absolutely,
Yeah.
it is amazing what they're doing." And they present it, even to others. The Ames program is in all the boroughs. It's in the New York City Public Schools. It is a program for children with ASD. And, so they had even just presented to other SLPs and just on what they're doing in those classrooms and the importance of that integration of these services. Yeah, no, they took it upon themselves because, and that's what you want.
That's right.
You have to be your own advocate and let people see the value of the SLP, in schools and or whatever profession you may have chosen to kind of, venture off into upon your graduation.
I love it.
Preach.
And did they feel comfortable coming to you with that? Like I know sometimes like I feel like I have this idea, but sometimes going to like that next step of like that supervisor or even like at the state, so like a governor, like do you think there was something that they saw in you or like maybe something you presented that made them feel more comfortable or like, I know I could easily talk to you like I love chit chat with you. So I know I feel like you were very easy to talk to, but was there something that since they we have a different relationship versus your, the people you work with, but was there something that they said or did or you did that made them feel that okay, I can take this next step with your support? Like is there something like
Well,
what's the next step? Yeah.
I think
Getting
everyone
it.
knows I love my related service providers, all of them, and that the team, the speech pathologist that's on that team, we have known each other for a while now, even in different roles that I've had, we have worked as colleagues. So I think they know that I am a firm believer. I don't believe in speech therapy down the hall, in the closet somewhere. I just think they are such a valuable player in this equation here. So I think that, yeah, they were ready to go and wanted to share the joy of what they're doing because the end of the day, we want our students to be successful. We want them to be communicators. And we need to do this together. We can't do it by pulling students out of classrooms and taking them down the hall and doing something separate, doing this together and helping our students across so social emotional development, communication, literacy, academics, they all intertwine. So when we partner together and we do this work, it works. And so, no, I think they were excited, and they all wanted to take off to go, but, there was a lot of coverage, but it certainly, absolutely, it's so well worth it. It's, there should be more models like this where we're integrating and working together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we take a pause and talk about your journey? Because from SLP, BCBA to principal, how cool is that? Just what kind of precipitated that, if you don't mind kind of explaining?
Yeah, well, I was like, oh, they're saying how many years they've been in SLP. I was thinking, how long has this been?
I know.
It's been a really long time. I was actually a teacher first in the New York City. At that time, it was probably called the Board of Education. I've been, here for a while. So I was a teacher who then with a master's in special education, and I decided to go back for speech therapy and become a speech pathologist and ended up going to Kane University for my master's. And then I started working in the school system and passionate, love it. I thought it was wonderful. I did leave the DOE for a while when I was having more babies. I have 4 children and did a lot of private work, so working in early intervention. And that's where I really discovered my love of working with children with autism and advocating for them and helping them to be successful. But at that same time, I realized that there was such a behavioral component. And I know there's a lot of controversy about BCBAs, but I'm also, I always say we're a neurodiverse school community. First a child has to have joy and happiness before anything else. So I liked the BCBA. I felt he was going to help me be a better SLP. So I did the coursework. I'm like a lifelong student.
You're a learner.
Love going to school. Yeah. I think I'm done now, but you never know. so then I decided to go get that again, just to help me be a better SLP, not because I wanted to be BCBA, but I wanted to be a better SLP, and I wanted to understand behaviors from a little bit more of a deeper lens. So I spent many years out of the DOE raising my children and doing early intervention, some private work, so a lot of feeding, autism, and apraxia. So I really love motor learning theory and learning about that. And that's part of the journey of an SLP as well, is we learn what we learn and we graduate, but we have to keep it going. Be strategic about those CEUs that you're getting, and hone in on your skills. So that's what led me to become prompt certified. And I very briefly taught prompt. I was very briefly a prompt instructor, but I actually do not like public speaking. So I didn't stick with that very long. But I do love, learning and figuring out what is the best kind of methodologies to help support students. And at a certain point, came back to the DOE and was working as a speech pathologist in the schools on Staten Island in District 31. And I had a wonderful supervisor, and she would always I was very clinically minded because I've been out of the DOE. And Judy, Stephanie,
Yeah.
was my supervisor. And Judy would say, you really have to get in with the curriculum. You have to, you're a literacy expert too. So over time, I really started to focus on that. And I just saw such an impact. We can make such an impact, positive impact on a student in the classroom to help them be successful. Such a critical role, the speech language pathologist in schools. So I ended up becoming a speech supervisor, and I got my job in District 75, which was where I had worked for so many years working with children with autism. So it was home to me to be now, again, I always feel like you're an advocate and you're helping, you're now helping SLPs to do even a better job to help students. And here I landed in this wonderful school, P37, and I loved it. And the principal at the time asked me to be her assistant principal. So I did, because I loved this school. And then along in the journey, it was this director position. And I was like, wow, I love speech pathology, the director position. This is amazing. I can impact speech services across the city. So I moved on into that field, into that position, and absolutely loved it. But my heart was here at P37. I was just telling someone today that there was not a day that passed. I did not think of this school, the students, if I was principal, what I would do in that school. And I heard the principal was retiring. And so I told my boss at that time, I'm going to put my name in, see where it goes. Yes. And here I am. So, and this is it now. That's it. I feel like I am home. My 4 children are raised. I have 540 children now that I am responsible for. And as an SLP, I do feel very strongly, like we talk about, what are our basic tenets of our school? It's language, literacy, and communication. So that's what we focus on here. And we have to be grounded in that work. And the SLP plays such an important role. So I value that team. I love it. I really value them. And they lead so much because they help our non-speaking students to have a voice, and to show how smart they are, and all the assets and amazement they bring to our school community. So our SLPs, and what a perfect month to be speaking about them, because it's National Speech and Hearing Month. So I appreciate them every day, but this month, certainly highlighting the wonderful work they do for us.
Oh my gosh, what a journey. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's great. That ties into my next question I have for you. So I'm sure even along your journey when you were like an SLP, I don't know about you, Jess, but I feel like a lot of supervisors, they're not SLPs across the board, whether it be, even a principal, a director. What made you decide to do that, or what helped you to take that next step, or what would you pass on to people who are maybe thinking about it, but I'm not sure if I'm ready? I think of, especially in a school, you're surrounded by a lot more educators, and it's I have to be an educator to take that next step of being that supervisor or that director role. So what advice would you give to me, people who might be slightly interested or maybe like thinking about it,
Get involved, get involved at the school level. And I love when someone comes and tells me they're interested in leadership, because there are so many pathways. You could be at the school level, you could be more at a central level supporting policies, even within the public schools, but get involved at the school level, volunteer for things, join, school leadership teams where you are getting together and making decisions for a team. We're in my school, we're just starting now. I just shared a survey with everyone, and we're starting to meet just to look at that survey result and talk about how we can make our school an even better place. So get involved in all of those facets of your school community if you are a school-based SLP and you're thinking leadership. And just start to learn about like how the running, like how does a school run, and the different facets of leadership. But I would encourage everyone to do it, because it's wonderful. It's because I feel in this role, like all those years of working as an SLP, now I'm advocating for 540 students to have their needs met and above. I'm a really big supporter of students with disabilities having equal access to everything that any other student has. So I'm doing it at the school level, but when we talk about policy changes, but how do we look at, the services that are in place for students with disabilities, the location of their services, and just that equity of education, of our education system for students with disabilities. Sometimes you do have to go to that state level and start having those conversations, because it would be beneficial if things change for the SLP to give them more time so that they can get more involved in the curriculum, and, even adding it right there, right into the curriculum map, where show me the lens of that SLP in that curriculum map.
So in dealing with that, what's the reason for someone to go to like the state level to request for help, or do you have a story about, going to the state level to request for something or to advocate for something?
Well, in my previous role, in the director role, we were talking about a pilot, like this whole caseload versus workload model. How do we start to shift it? Even when you look at ASHA and, like they talk about, workload versus caseload, what states are, what is New Jersey, by the way?
There's no caseload cap.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're probably. And how about Hawaii?
So I don't have a caseload in Hawaii, so I can't speak on that. But I think, and I do more contract work with other states through teletherapy. So we're very like, I don't allow anybody to give me too much,
right?
If that makes sense.
Right, because and truthfully, you pile too much on, it's going to impact the quality of
Absolutely.
The treatment if you load up groups and you don't give people time. So like there was talk about a pilot of looking at that workload model. Could it work? Would it help to decrease mandates, because the provider would be more integrated into that classroom and have more time for that collaboration with families? Like we're talking a lot about schools and teachers, but hey, let's not forget the families. Like we have to have that carryover. So those conversations with families, bringing families in for trainings, like just even one-on-one, sitting down with those AAC devices, and how do we use the devices? A lot of times we see the devices in place, but are they being effectively used? Does the family know how to use it? It takes explicit teaching, So there was talk of a pilot, and we were even just looking at, ASHA. I always go to ASHA as well for myself. Even it helps me when, I want to see what the evidence is and where things are leading. Certainly when working with children with autism or multiple disabilities, I want to see where is the research right now with literacy and students with disabilities, or AAC. So I always lean into ASHA. And I think I learned that, Stephanie, even more so with the thousands of articles that we had to read and break down and decipher. So, but it's important, and you can't just ask your neighbor next to you, how do I do this? You have to go there and use that as a resource. So even going into the, like the ASHA and looking at the schools contingency there and what they're working on, and, following their chats and their conversations and putting information into it and starting to network with other people from other schools, perhaps within your city and state, but even like us, all different, like how can we put our heads together to help to, make those changes so that you do, number one, get the best of the best that want to come into this field and you retain them. Because what is the retention of those SLPs? Because sometimes people, they start the work and they get really overwhelmed and they don't feel valued. And then if you don't feel valued, then, you sometimes end up saying, this isn't for me. And you end up leaving the school system. And that's a shame because when you feel valued, you work harder and you do more, and our students deserve that and they deserve the best. So I think it's not only at the state level, but I mean, I love perusing through ASHA and all of the supports that they have.
Amazing.
Now, is there any other, like, I know I go on ASHA, like, I know now I love to like dabble in, it's like, oh, what's going on? But I also like to hit, like, I have New Jersey speech language, like we've just dabbled into that a bit. How is New York's? Like, is there other resources you like to dabble in to gather your information when you're doing grammar stuff?
They have, like they have great workshops and supports as well. And even the New York City Public Schools, like they will partner with NISHLA in terms of offering workshops and encouraging you to attend the workshops. I mean, even actually it was some of the supports when I was looking to go into a doctoral program, it was someone, like another NISHLA member who said to me, Kane is starting a program. And, I was like, I wasn't sure at that point. I was like, am I EDD or SLPD? And I was like, oh, well, Kane is my, that's where I graduated from. I would love to go back. And, like it was from those connections. So, definitely like attending those workshops and networking and speaking to people. And even like I mentioned the team before, don't be afraid to take your knowledge and what you're doing and show what you're doing, because that's a form of advocacy as well. So it's important, even just at the school level, if you are an SLP working in a school and you are going down the hallway and people are like, who's that? Don't get insulted, make sure people know who you are, besides just wearing the speech cert, tell them who you are and all you bring to the table and your expertise, because, they're the hidden gems of a school system. They have so much knowledge in so many areas that impact a student, to meet standards and to help them develop their literacy skills, so you have to be your own self-advocate, even just at your own school level. So also offering to do a PD. So if you're interested in leadership, maybe you're going to present at a PTA meeting. That's really impactful as well. Just even strategies to use in the home or how to use a device or maybe literacy tips when reading a book. It helps you to get over some of those maybe jitters of public speaking, which I always have, but it also helps you to learn that advocacy skill.
I can't believe that you have trouble with public speaking. I can't.
I know.
No,
but
seriously.
I also feel like a bobblehead too. So if you're listening to this later on, Steph and I are shaking our heads yes to everything you're saying. And we're just kind of like, yes, preach, say it. Yes, we agree. We agree with everything. Like, it's just, it's so,
I mean, amazing.
It's perfect. It's perfect. Hawaii, it's everything I was hoping for. Yeah. And then, so just to kind of recap, and I think this is the overall theme of what we're trying to say is get involved. Yes. If you have questions, get involved. Is that what you're,
If you have questions, get involved, but even more than that, get involved and let people know your value. Let people know what you bring to the table, because some people don't know. Some people don't really know what a speech language pathologist does, or, let your voice be heard in that classroom, in a very nice way, because it is the teacher's classroom. But make sure they see your value in that classroom. About phonological awareness and, so how can you support that classroom teacher? When they start to see that, then everybody is going, forget about it. They're not going to want you out of the classroom. They're going to be dragging you into the room, because when people realize how much that a speech language pathologist does bring to the table, I mean, they're such a critical piece in a school. So
Agreed.
yeah, let your voice be heard, volunteer to do a PD. You can do them virtually now or in person, but it's great always to do it in person, or even just meet with your parents one-on-one with their child and go over some things to help kind of demystify devices, or just because someone is non-speaking doesn't mean they don't understand. And I think like that's a really big piece. And then we also go out in the community. So when you think about the community, we have to make sure the community is aware of students with disabilities as well, that they deserve an equal seat at this table here.
Agreed.
I love it. Now I know with tying that all in, and have you said, like, now being the principal, have you feel like what was the biggest achievement you've had, like working with, like getting to like the next step of seeing, like spreading the word about something? Or is there any, like, I know you talk about the AIMS program, which is, I feel like I'm sure that was like a baby. I'm sure it seems like you're very proud of that achievement. But is there anything else you would be like, that I want to take the next step of achieving or working towards? And like, how you want to get there? I don't know if you're working on something, if you want to share it or not share it, but just so anyone who wants to maybe start that next step, or maybe spark an idea of somebody.
So I want to say that I didn't,
Yeah.
the AIDS program was here. This is the Department of Education, the New York City Public Schools came up with that, much needed for students with autism. The ASD programs in the New York City Public Schools are wonderful, between AIMS and, the Horizon and NEST programs, lots of resources for students with autism. But for me, I have just this significant core belief that every student deserves access to high quality, evidence-based practices in school settings. And as I said, like there's like the perception that if you are non-speaking, that perhaps you're not ready to learn how to read. I don't believe that. I believe very strongly that every student deserves that access. And we have to figure out ways to get around those barriers, so that no matter what, that we are looking for those assets that every student has, and we're helping to highlight them and help them to flourish in a safe environment in a school, while we're helping them to develop their communication skills, however that is, whether they're speaking or using a device or symbols, whatever they're using to communicate, helping them to have their voice be heard and, be joyful individuals. So for me, it's really about advocating for my students at this point, so that they have that, the ability to have access to evidence-based practices and literacy and communication, and increase the knowledge of how we are a neurodiverse community. So we all have to learn how to live amongst one another, and we're all a little different. So how do we work all together and respect one another for who we are? So, bringing joy and helping my parents to feel that joy as well is really important to me. So those are my next steps right now, and to be that advocate for my students.
I love that.
I love it.
I love that.
I'm going to ask one other question. I know you talked about a pilot before when you were director of that workload versus caseload. I know I feel like everyone's like, that's like a huge hot topic right now.
Definitely.
Do you mind if I can ask you some more? Just like, so what information, like where did you gather your information for that? Because I know, of course, we tie back to that evidence. So I'm sure when you want to present it, you have to have the facts of, workload versus caseload. And I know even in my district, we're slowly trying to advocate for that. I know in my district, we finally got the 3-to-1 model, and that took 5 years of like binders of information. So can you share like some information of like where you gather that from, and building toward that, or share like how did you present it to other directors or supervisors while it being like for them to understand it and like
it was a joint partnership of work with the UFT as well. So the UFT, we were speaking about that, the caseload versus workload model, and just looking at mandates, right? You look at the mandates, they just keep climbing up. So why are they climbing up? What are we doing that we're not able to decrease these mandates or change mandates or move students to more inclusive settings? Why do the mandates seem to keep increasing, as opposed to being able to move students to more inclusivity, whether it be through their mandates classroom setting. So really looking at that mandate data and figuring out what we could do better. And then again, ASHA to me is like an excellent resource, looking at the research articles that they have and in the states where the workload model is in place, and they are noticing that they are able to move students to more inclusive settings. Why? Because you're building in that time for assessments, collaboration, family trainings, which then helps the student to master goals, be more successful. And then, from there, you're able to move that student, which is that's what our job is, to move our students to more inclusive, give them the skills so they could be successful. So looking at some of that data from ASHA, and it was presented, and you know what, it's not going to happen overnight. At first, it might uptick the number of SLPs that you need because they are doing less sessions. But then you should start to see a descending trend in those mandates, because it will work, because we all know that none of us could do this alone. We need to work with that, that interprofessional practice model of all of us working together to hone in on each and every single goal for that student. And once we do that, then perhaps we should start to see that decrease, which then, should not have a student with so many mandates, but also decrease the need for those services for that student. So that's what we were doing. We were looking at the data of students, and then we were looking at the research and states that were doing it well. So you look at the states that are doing it well, and you see, maybe you want to replicate that.
Was there a state that like stuck out that you remember that was like, oh yeah, this is the state that was doing it well? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember.
I'm looking, and I just did like a really quick Google search. And I found the 2022 state-by-state caseload guidance. So literally just Googled it. And I looked up our states. And Hawaii, as of 2022, there's no minimum or maximum in terms of caseload guidance. And there's no link to guidance, but there is a contact that people can find. For New York, the maximum is 65. And then they do have an area where you can go to the New York Special Education Department, and you can reach out to somebody there. And then New Jersey, you have no caseload limit.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
I know.
You could do it, Dr. Reed.
When you I always think of like, I love my supervisor, but I always hear in the back of his mind, he's like, the magic number is 5. I'm like, no, I can't do it.
But like at the same time,
5 sounds great, but if you're not making an impact, then why? It's just going, you have to explicitly teach. This is like, let us use our expertise to explicitly teach. So listen, we're always looking for more inclusivity, a decrease in mandates, but never at the expense of a student. It has to be meaningful, because we want to make sure that the student is getting what they need in regard to those services.
And that's why more speech therapists should become principals.
Or come work at P37 instead of.
I don't know. I mean, there was also, I remember this story, and I wonder if people remember this too, and I'm going to butcher it, but there was, I think it was in New Mexico. There was a speech therapist in New Mexico, and she was upset about something that was happening at the state level. And she was like, you know what? I'm just going to run. So she ran for Senate or whatever, and she won. And now she's, I believe she's doing something there. I wish I had more information about this story, but she really just kind of took it and ran with it for her state because she was upset about something. So, and Steph knows me too. When I get upset about something, I'm very vocal about it. That's just who I am as a person. Steph is kind of more like, okay, let me watch and see what's happening. Yeah. But I feel like, again, the overwhelming arch of this is to get involved and to like go to the state association, go and talk with people. You have to mingle. You have to put yourself kind of out there. And like, I am definitely somebody who is an introverted extrovert. Like, I love to be around people, but then I really need to get into a little ball and just kind of get over it. Right. So I think kind of getting over that and like getting yourself out there and going to those state associations and then advocating, especially if you have something that you're super passionate about, like you are definitely passionate about your students, like you care, you can tell, I mean, everyone listening can tell how much you care, right? So because you care so much, that will translate into your advocacy work and how you move forward, right? So anyways, just kind of putting that story out there.
Tie it all together.
Our passion drives our purpose, right? I mean, it is, you know, this is my passion, and I do have this core belief. And now in this role, I am able to make that happen at my school level, step by step, you know, and, you know, just have this wonderful team that believes in my students. And, you know, once you have that, then you're just going to keep going and making changes that are meaningful. Which are much needed. They're much needed changes for students with disabilities. Like we've come a long way, certainly, but we have a long way to go. So yeah, if you're a speech language pathologist and this, you know, like this is your thing, then for sure, get that, you know, in New York, we have to get school leadership certificate, you know, school building leader. So you have to get that degree, but get that, and then you figure out that channel of how you want to advocate at this level, but bring in ASHA, bring in your state, whatever state that is, and, you know, look at the research and join those different, you know, like those different committees to ensure that people hear you. And I also, you know, work closely with the local politicians. You know, hurry, everyone come to P37. Meet these amazing students, see what they're capable of. You know, we are now going to be going down to the borough president's office to do their music on the patio. My students will be singing with students from other schools or playing instruments. I want everyone to see how amazing my students are, and that, you know, as I said, they deserve a seat at this table and, you know, have access to what everybody else has access to.
I love it.
I might cry.
I love it.
It's beautiful. It's like
Okay.
everything that you want to happen, right? Like, can you talk more about who is it, the senators you said that you got involved, or state legislators?
We're always, you know, we invite in our assemblyman, our borough president. We have a wonderful borough president and assemblyman of Staten Island, our senator. So even that, as a school, I am a District 75 school, but we join all of they have like writing contests and things like that. Matter of fact, the borough president had a writing contest, Readers Are Leaders, and you were supposed to do these things. We took all his material, we adapted it at our school level, and we said to them, we hope you don't mind, but we adapted your work so that our students can access it, right? Because it's about access. You know, they might not be able to write that big essay or something, but when we provide this access for them, they can do it. So we have to look at that always. You know, it's not one size fits all. So we were like, we hope you don't mind, but we adapted everything that you sent us so that our students have that access. And we joined all of these different things. And at one of the visits to the school, the borough president invited us down to come to the music on the patio. And so coming down there, I said, you know, one of my students is an excellent singer, and another school is going, their band is going to be there. So I gave a call to the principal of that other school and said, hey, do you think your band could play while my student sings? Absolutely. So now, you know, and that's what we want, like the pairing of schools, of students, you know, just kind of inclusion. Inclusion does matter, you know, and inclusion means much more than just sharing a building together. It's not just shared space. It's, you know, just this collective work together, so that we're helping to educate everyone that we are a neurodiverse population, and everybody needs to respect one another, work together, respect different voices. And how do we do that is by like teaching and showing and modeling and being kind to one another, you know, so we're really excited about that. And so we love our, you know, like that, the fact that people do come here and want to help and want to support and want to learn more, you know, and that's great for us.
Amazing. I'm just going to shrink you and put you on my shoulder and like have you come with me as I talk about advocacy.
You sound pretty good. It sounds pretty good.
I know, right?
More than welcome to visit.
So it has already been our hour. Our time is coming to an end. Thank you so much, Cori. I hope everyone.
Wait.
Okay, good.
Wait.
What else?
Final thoughts.
Well,
Final thoughts from you, Cori. When it comes to state level advocacy, anything that you want to add in or like kind of close this out with, and then we'll ask you where we can find you. So state level,
yes.
Final thoughts is to be your best advocate for what you do as a speech language pathologist. Go to those trainings that your state association is offering. Get involved, become a member, read their research that they're sharing, join their chat groups, all of the different media. We can get involved in so many ways now. Make sure people see the value that you bring. So you can do that at area level, but certainly at that state level, you want to make sure. And even at ASHA, they have a wonderful, if we're just thinking from the school, they have a wonderful, section there for supporting school services. And it's wonderful to get involved with them, and even just on their chats and network with people from all over. So make sure that people see your value and what you bring to whatever you may be doing, and make sure you're doing it with joy and love, because that's the most important thing.
Yes, joy and love. I love that. I love that. And then Cori, where can people find you? How do we find you?
All right. Well, I do. I have my principal Instagram account, and also I have, my email, I guess, would be the two best ways. I mean, my principal Instagram account, you get to see all my students and what we're doing at our school. It's principal_Regan 37 on Instagram. And also my email is Regan, CREGAN @schools.nyc.gov. I'll take applications and resumes of everyone that wants to come and be warriors for our students with disabilities.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Cori, this is my first time meeting you. So thank you for jumping on.
Yes, it was a pleasure.
Told you she was the
don't
best.
Get me, as I say sometimes to people, don't get me started. Don't get me started.
But that's what Steph said. She was like, let's get Cori on because we'll get her started.
Yeah. Excellent. It was so nice to meet you. And Stephanie, it was so great to see you again. Thank you so much for thinking of me. I'm honored. I'm really honored.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you guys.
Keep it going.
Yeah, I will, believe me.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see everyone next week.
Thank you for joining us for today's course. To complete the course, you must log into your account and complete the quiz and the survey. If you have indicated that you are part of the ASHA registry and entered both your ASHA number and a complete mailing address in your account profile prior to course completion, we will submit earned CEUs to ASHA. Please allow 1 to 2 months from the completion date for your CEUs to reflect on your ASHA transcript. Please note that if this information is missing, we cannot submit to ASHA on your behalf. Thanks again for joining us. We hope to see you next time. Each episode comes with an accompanying audio course on speechtherapypd.com, available for a 0.1 ASHA CEU. And just for our listeners, get $20 off any subscription with promo code SLPLearn20. Speechtherapypd.com is run by SLPs for SLPs. They've got the largest library of ASHA CE eligible courses out there, and they're adding fresh content every week. Remember, use the code SLPLearn20 to get $20 off access to over 1,000 courses for an entire year. Head over to speechtherapypd.com for more information and start earning CEs today. Thanks for tuning in to the SLP Learning Series. And don't forget, speechtherapypd.com is your go-to for all things ASHA CEUs. Your positive reviews and support mean the world to us, and we'd love for you to drop us a quick review and hit that subscribe button.